Hi, hello, my name is Philip, and I am a GM. I've been running various Palladium games since, I want to say 1990, 91. And my first game was actually Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness. The purpose of this video is to kind of just walk you through a quick process of creating a character in the system. This is kind of a guide for new players to Palladium, especially Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They do have a Kickstarter that just finished in 2024, and the product should be released in 2025, hopefully soon, like around maybe March, based on their current projections. So we're going to be creating a character in the original way, which some people would say is basically the first edition. So let's get started. So I just used the random online die generator, so basically roll up the attributes, and I rolled an 11 for IQ, and we're just adding these numbers like straight down the line, no customizing, moving them around or anything like that. We're just gonna roll straight as. We're gonna just let numbers fall where they fall. So the thing to know about Palladium is there are 8 attributes, and we'll go through them as I add the numbers in. So first one is 11. For IQ, which is intelligence quotient, which is basically how smart your character is. The next number is 13, which is your character's mental endurance, and that's how strong their willpower is, resisting things like psionic attacks, mental conditions such as fear and other types of insanity. Next we have is 10, and that will be going into their mental affinity, which is basically their personality, how charismatic they are, how intimidating they are to others. 6, that's for physical strength, which is obviously just how strong your character is. Next is 10 for physical prowess, which is basically your character's agility, your dexterity. Next is 16 for physical endurance, which is your character's health. Not only is it their physical health, like in resisting comas, poisons and that type of thing, but it also is important in determining your character's hit points. In the end, when you finish adding up your hit points, you add your physical endurance to your hit points to get your total pool for hit points. And if you've played any RPG, whether tabletop or video game, hit points is how much damage your character can take before they die, or in Palladium's case, go into a coma. 11 is your character's physical attractiveness, usually based on human eyes. In later editions, you may have characters that have different physical beauty scores depending on races they encounter when you're dealing with like aliens and other cultures. But in this case, it's just generally how humans view how attractive the character is, especially when it comes to mutant animals that have no human features. That's when you go into furry territory, or scalies, or whatever. Your final attribute is 12, which is speed, and that's basically how fast your character can move. But it's also important to note that in TMNT, the original, it would give you a bonus to initiative. Now, earlier editions may have had a typo where it would give you bonuses to strike, which some people roll with. You already have strike bonuses affected by your physical prowess. So originally it was for initiative in some of the later editions, and I believe from what I saw in one of the previews of the upcoming books, that it again will be applied to initiative. So next we're going to roll 1d100 to determine what type of animal or character will be. For the purpose of this video, we're just sticking with the original book. We're not going to the splat books. There are a bunch of other books that were released around the same time period as the original game, and they gave you options for other animal species. In this case, we're just sticking with the ones in the main book to keep everything nice and simple. And we rolled 57, which is a wild animal. All right, and here's the wild animal table, and we're gonna roll 1d100, and we've got 13, which gives us a fox. So then we're gonna go over to the Foxx animal template to look at our character's options. So now that we have our Foxx template pulled up, there are some things you need to pay attention to that are going to be important to your character's creation. First things first is your size level, which determines your character's height and weight, as well as STC. SDC are basically temporary hit points. Your character normally takes damage from SDC first and then their hit points. So if they get stabbed, it'll come out of their SDC. SDC is basically like if you watch a movie, you see a character that's been run over, hit by a car, stabbed, punched, they fell from a great height, but then they get back up on their feet without almost any injury. That's essentially what SDC is. Once your character starts taking hit point damage, then you're bleeding, you have broken bones, you have broken limbs, that type of thing. So there are some attacks that can bypass SDC, such as lethal poisons, certain magical spells, but generally, I would say something like 90% of the attacks your character suffers in a game will usually target the SDC first. And SDC you can boost through other things like body armor, force fields, that sort of enhancement. But your character's size level affects their starting SDC, not to mention their height and weight, which are all rolled. You also need to pay attention to your character's build for each animal species. The build affects their height. And then the last two things you need to worry about are your Bio-E. Your Bio-E is your bioenergy that affects your character's mutation. Your character starts off with a set Bio-E point score. Small animals have more Bio-E, large animals have very little to none. And you use Bio-E points to purchase your character's size attributes, as well as any natural powers that are inherent to that animal species. This could be things like heightened sense of smell, the ability to detect electrical signals from living animals. You also get attribute bonuses that are based on your character's species. So each species will give different ability bonuses. In this case, as a fox, we have a +2 to IQ, a +8 to mental endurance, and a +3 to speed. So once again, the most important things for our character's fox template to know offhand are size level, which is 3, build, which is long, Bio-E points 60, and the 3 attribute bonuses, IQ +2, ME +8, speed +3. So for human attributes, you can spend Bio-E points to make your character have the ability to stand upright like a normal human being. They can have partial bipedality, where they are mostly on their all fours, but then occasionally they can stand up on their feet to stand upright, kind of like a bear. And then you have things like their features, how human they look. So for this character, we're going to give them partial hands. So they can use hands sometimes, but they do get penalties when they're manipulating objects like weapons or anything in their hand, as well as like any skills that require the use of their hands. So like I said, in this case, we're going to go partial, and that's going to cost them 5 Bio-E points. The downside is they do, like I said, they get a -4 penalty to strike with anything in their hand, as well as a -6 to parry. And then for physical skills that are affected, like say if they're trying to use a computer or fix something, they would receive a -20% to their proficiency skill. Speech, we're just going to give them partial speech, so they still sound very animalistic. Luckily, there is no penalty given for things like language, so it's more of just the game aesthetic for your character than anything, like a characteristic. There's no mechanics at play that affect any sort of skill rolls, so that's a good thing. For the bipedality, we're just gonna give them full mobility. I mean, if you look at partial, it says running, leaping, kicking, all that type of things are not possible. So at least this character will be able to stand and perform kicks and jumps and that type of thing, and even run at full speed if they need to on 2 legs versus all 4. Human looks, we're not going to give them anything, which I think is kind of a shame. I think there should be some sort of penalty for having human looks. So if you have like no looks, maybe some sort of penalty to charisma or something, but then again, those are covered by any animal bonuses to attributes. So in the end, we have no looks, so they look completely like a bipedal fox. We do have full biped ability. We have partial speech and partial hands. And in the end, that's going to cost us 20 Bio-E points out of our pool of 60. Alright, so we've already spent some Bowie points for our characters' human features. Now we're going to spend some points on natural weapons and powers. In this case, we're just going to give them... Now in this case, we're going to choose 10 Bowie points for the 1d8 teeth. So now our character has a bite attack. And since there's only 2 powers listed, we're just going to spend the full 10 Bowie points. For advanced hearing, advanced smell, that's 20 Bowie spent. So now we're down to 20 Bowie left. And we're going to save that for a physical size level, which again starts at 3. And if you quickly look, advanced smell, which is under the animal power section for heightened sentences, you'll see advanced smell gives percentile abilities for tracking and stuff like that, which I'll fill in at the end of the character creation sheet. But we do notice under advanced hearing, it does give a bonus of +1 to initiative. So we're going to add that in under our combat bonuses. So with our remaining 20 Bowie, we're going to spend that on our growth levels. To advance each growth level costs 5 Bowie points. Similarly, if you're a large animal, you start off with more growth levels and less Bowie, but you can sell off your levels, so every level you give up, you gain back 5 Bowie, which you can spend on features. So say you're growth level 10, you start off with 45 Bowie, and then as you descend, you get +5 for each one you grow smaller. Similarly, in this case, on our end, we're spending Bowie points to grow in size. And each size level also has attribute bonuses and penalties. But at growth level 3, normally we would have -4 to IQ, -3 to physical strength, -1 to physical endurance, +3 to speed, and starting SDC at 15. But since we have 20 points, we're going to spend that. So now we're going to be growth level 7, and that's going to give us a +1 to physical strength, no bonuses to endurance or speed, and give us a starting SDC of 30. We'll put that down. And now at size level 7, we're going to roll 3d10, add that to 75, and that's going to determine our character's weight. Because our character has a long body, our character starts at 60 inches long or 60 inches tall, and we're going to add 2d6 to that. So 2d6 plus 60, and that's going to determine our character's height. And in the end, our character is 5'9" and 97 pounds. And I've decided we're going to make her female. So next thing we're going to do is determine our character's mutation, how they became a humanoid fox from a regular fox. What we're going to do is we're going to roll 1d100, and we rolled 17, accidental encounter. So they ran into some sort of agent that mutated them in the wild. So now we have to roll on the wild animal education table, and we rolled an 11. Which is everything is self-taught. Okay, so basically our character is pretty much unskilled. All their skills are derived at normal everyday usage, and maybe some stuff they picked up from like the fringe of society. So under the wild animal education table, so we see they get wilderness skills including prowl, so we get a bonus of 24%. Survival skills 24, which doesn't exist as far as like a group or whatever, so I'm guessing they mean wilderness survival. We get escape artist plus 10, climbing plus 15, swimming plus 10. Okay, so note those down. We get an SDC bonus of plus 10%, which will apply at the very end once we add up everything. Our character also gets a physical endurance bonus of plus 6, a PS bonus, physical strength plus 3, and PP bonus, which is physical prowess again, and that's a plus 2. We also get 2 additional attacks per melee, and our character is going to start with 1 secondary skill. We also are going to roll 3d6 times 100, and that's going to be equipment that they've scrounged up and stuff like that. It could also just be cash, if like, you know, whatever's left over. Okay, so skill-wise, the character's pretty simple. We're not going crazy with like any sort of skill program or anything like that. And for secondary skill, we'll just keep it simple. Choose weapon proficiency, knife. And speaking of skill programs, one thing to be cautious of is when you get to the skill section, you'll see here there's 2 groups. There's one section that says skill programs, the other side says skill categories. Now early on, when we first started playing, we had players that would choose skill categories and put down every single skill from there. And that's not the case. What you want to do is you want to look under skill program, and that's only going to give you a handful of skills. Sometimes it'll give you skill choices. Say, you know, pick one skill from one of these 3 or 2 offerings. Other times they'll just say pick 2 skills from this category. And then sometimes skill programs are the only way to get certain skills. They'll say you get the skill, but the skill starts at this percent, or it has a penalty of this percent. Another note, under secondary skills, like I said, we're just going to keep it simple. We chose knife. For secondary skills, you do only have certain skills you can take as your secondary skill selection. You're not going to be able to grab every single skill you want from any category. You can only abide by what's given secondary skill list available to any PC created. And like I said, we're just going to keep it simple, and we chose knife. So now we're going to do skills. The skills are relatively straightforward. Most of them are just percentile based. And you'll see here, for example, climbing skill, it's 50% plus 8% per level. What they mean is it's 50% at first level, and then you get a plus 8 per additional level. You do not get the plus 8 at first level, but some GMs do house rule it and allow it. I'm one of those GMs usually. And then physical skills also have the ability to modify your attributes. Like, again, climbing, since the reason I'm using climbing is because we get it as one of the skills the character knows. So in this case, we're going to get a +1 to physical strength and physical endurance, as well as a +1d6 to STC. So we're going to add those into the character sheet, but usually physical skills are the only ones that modify attributes. Although if you pick up Rifters, which is an optional supplement that's published or was published by Palladium, a lot of Rifters have modifications to existing skills as well as new skills. These are all optional rules, but they'll give you additional bonuses. Sometimes they'll affect your intelligence, mental endurance, so on and so on. But usually, generally, only physical skills are the ones that will be modifying attributes straight from the book. You do have alignments in Palladium. These have been pretty much the same alignments since the very beginning. And you do have 3 categories. You have good, you have selfish, and you have evil. There is no neutrality in this, unlike Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And for good, you have principled and scrupulous. Principled is basically the Boy Scout. They will not break laws, all that type of thing. Scrupulous, they're willing to bend the laws in the name of good. You have selfish, which are unprincipled and anarchists. One's completely out for themselves. The other one is more bordering towards good, but at the same time is willing to break laws and stuff like that. In this case, we're probably just going to make the character anarchists, completely out for themselves, self-serving. They're willing to do anything within reason for themselves. They're willing to harm innocents, but at the same time, they're not looking to harm innocents. But if an innocent gets harmed in the process, they're not gonna pine over the decision. They're not gonna think about it too much. They're like, oops, oh well, shit. Then you have evil, which are miscreant, aberrant, and diabolic. For those 3, you have characters that are self-serving overall. One may be more honorable. They'll have a code of ethics. Another one is just outright evil. They're going to do whatever the fuck they want. They're going to kill anyone that gets in their way. They don't care if it's a kid, if it's a puppy, if it's a kitten. They don't care if they're disabled, whatever. They're going to kill them outright. The good thing about Palladium is they do kind of give you some bullet points on a general code of ethics for each of the alignments. You know, look it over. I don't think it's that hard, and they do give some comparisons of characters like Han Solo or Dirty Harry to give you an idea of the mindset that they had in mind when they created these alignments. Alright, so the next thing we're going to focus on is our character's ability for combat. It's pretty straightforward because we don't have many skills, we don't have hand-to-hand martial arts or anything like that. So for characters, you start off with 2 attacks, regardless of any hand-to-hand training, martial arts, expert, basic, whatever. And then those are modified by any skills, or in this case, mutant animal traits. So for our character, we start off with 2 attacks, and then we get an additional 2 attacks because of their wild animal education. And that's it. Then we have combat bonuses, which the character really doesn't have anything, except for a +1 to initiative, and that's from their advanced sense of hearing. And that is basically it. Otherwise, the character is stuck with regular hands, punching, kicking, and then their mutant ability, which is a bite. That's straightforward. Oh, and then they have, remember they have partial hands, so they do get a penalty of -4 to strike and a penalty of -6 to parry with anything in their hand, whether it's a knife, a sword. No penalties as far as unarmed combat, but they do have a knife skill, which they do get a +1 to strike and parry with knives. Unfortunately, again, we have to remember they also suffer penalties. So using a knife, that -4 to strike becomes a -3, and a -6 to parry becomes a -5. So keep that in mind. And then from there, we're just gonna clean up the character sheet, and here we have the character sheet. Everything's been added up. So now we know total hit points are 29. We have STC of 40. That's with the plus 10% added in. We have an IQ 13, mental endurance 21, mental affinity 10, physical strength 11, physical prowess 12, physical endurance 21, physical beauty 11, speed 15. We have our powers listed, as well as our percentile added in for advanced smell. So now 30% tracking by scent, recognize smell of individuals, as well as extreme emotions, 64%. Added in language and literacy, English, mathematics, basic. All the percentiles are added up. Because he does receive penalties using his hands, we've already removed the 20% from climbing and rappelling, which are basically 2 skills he gets from that one climbing skill. Rappelling, he'll definitely have to use his hands. Escape artist, that one's a little more iffy, so I split it up. Its base skill is 40%, but if he's using his hands, then it's 20%. And then he has his one secondary skill, which is knife. Again, combat is very simple. He only has a +1 to initiative. He doesn't get anything from his attributes. And then we have saving throws. She does have a high physical endurance, so because of that, she gets a +16 to save versus coma and death, as well as a +6 to save versus toxins. She does have a high mental endurance, and that gives her a +3 to save versus psionics. Other than that, the character's pretty much done. I did spend some money just to give her a knife. That way she can use her knife skill if she needs to. I threw in a quick description into the Bing image creator just to get an AI image of what she might look like. And here we have a very skinny, fragile looking Foxx. You can download the character. I created a PDF for the character sheet. I did create a second version of the character using the same roles and everything. But I redesigned her using Heroes Unlimited and After the Bomb. In that one, you'll notice some things that have been changed, such as skill percentiles. Not to mention maybe some skills, because in 2nd edition, a lot of settings have split language between literacy and spoken language, whereas in the original TMNT, language covered both literacy and speaking. Also for Foxes in the updated template, they no longer get the bite ability. So for that system, I spent the BOWE points that would have been used for bite for extra physical prowess, which increases the character's physical prowess attribute and also gives an additional +1 attack. So you'll notice the 2nd edition character has more attacks than the original edition. But both character sheets are available for download, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe to my channel for future videos. I do video conversions for various characters for the Palladium system. But that being said, I'm gonna go jump off, and I just wanted to thank you for tuning in, and until next time, game on. Take care. Bye.